International break and an ideal time to look back at October, look forward to a very busy period of games leading up to the new year. This is Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. Hello, good evening and welcome to Blue Monday. My name's Craig Fimbo. Joining me this evening for a review and a Q&A type show are two gents who from memory aren't that bothered by international breaks and I believe quite like them. Certainly yourself, Joe Fairs. Did you manage to catch any of it? We had a little chat just now saying that Mikey caught the last half an hour and I caught the first hour, unfortunately. But did you manage to see any of it, Joe?
No, I was travelling today, but I have sort of had a busy weekend of international football, sort of starting with England game Thursday, watched a lot of the Northern Ireland game, I think that was Friday, then the Scotland sort of humdinger last night where George Hurst came on for a little bit on the end of Saturday, and earlier in the day, I watched Brazil v Senegal was on earlier in the day. The joys of having a sort of only terrestrial TV where I was staying over the weekend meant there was just a lot of football on, which is unusual for a weekend away when it's just Premier League and Championship and those sort of stuff. There's none of that football on terrestrial, but the weekends really go mad. Oh, the Wales game I watched as well. That was
in Welsh commentary, was it, or just
no? I had to make do with sort of BBC 4 on that one. I think it was.
But Mikey, you managed to catch the best part of this afternoon's England game by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I got lucky. Tuned in about 35 minutes left on the clock, and to be honest, it looked like it was going to be Albania that were going to get a goal, if anyone. But then Kane does what he does, just right man at the right time, Johnny on the spot, nicks a scruffy goal from a set piece, and then make a couple of changes. Rashford whips in a fantastic cross for Kane. It sounds like Jude Bellingham had a good game and Phil Foden looked pretty lively from what I saw. So, yeah, plenty of positives for England.
Yeah, I could start. Well, if Harry Kane's playing well, then at least we know our friend Chrissy will be full of the joys of spring, it being his favourite player ever, or words to that effect. Did Henry make it over there for this one?
No, he didn't. He didn't do Albania. He was in Serbia recently. I think it might have been the small allocation that scuppered.
Yeah, he mentioned that on the pod we did the other day, didn't he?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, hello to you two guys. Hello to everyone we've got here in the chat. Good evening to you, Shane. Hey to you, JR. Bits, safe travels, yourself and your wife. Good evening. Justin, Neil, and Ben, hopefully counting down what we got now. Was it Friday, 2:30 a.m. is the start of the Ashes, Ben. So hopefully you're looking forward to that over there.
Won't be 2:30 a.m. for Ben, will it?
No, it won't be. No, I've already forewarned Katie, my wife, that there will be an alarm clock going off in the bedroom at 2:25 a.m. on Friday morning. So I've given her 4 or 5 days good warning, which is the secret of a 20-year marriage, Mikey. There goes a bit of advice for you. We did put a shout out on Telegram and on Twitter for questions. As I said at the very, very beginning, we'll use the last part of the show for a Q&A. So if anybody in the chat has got any questions or wants to kick off any sort of discussion, then please, by all means, do so. As ever, stick a Q in front of your question and I can pick them up and highlight them, and now I will pick them up later on and run them past the guys here. Good morning, good evening, sorry, Veronica, to you. Your son's over in Albania. Congratulations for him to get one of the tickets over there. In terms of international football, let's do a quick international roundup of the Ipswich Town players that were involved. Dara O'Shea and the Irish fellas have had a couple of lively old matches. Dara was heavily involved in the first one, a contretemps with Cristiano CR7 midweek, resulting in a Cristiano Ronaldo red card and appropriate greetings or sendings off from the Irish fans I saw on various social media. which will see him miss the first 2 matches of next year's World Cup. So by the time he gets round to
potentially,
wow, yeah, good point. But by the time he gets around to playing, they may well be heading out. Did you guys get to see the incident?
Yeah, no. Watch the incident back, and I think it's just a bit silly from Ronaldo, isn't he? Sort of does chuck an elbow at him. I'm sure O'Shea goes down easily, but I heard Roberto Martinez talking in the press conference about, oh, he just felt his shoulder and went down. And I thought, oh my God, you managed Portugal, the most diving team in international football. So there's a little bit sort of like irony meter going off the scale when he's talking about a player going down too easily after contact for Cristiano Ronaldo, isn't it? So sort of fair play to Darrow for getting that big important contribution.
Bit of history between O'Shea and Ronaldo as well. They'd had a bit of a tete-a-tete in the past. So O'Shea definitely knows how to get under the great man's skin. Lovely to see Piers Morgan leap to Cristiano's defence and suggest that Darrow O'Shea shouldn't have even felt the contact, let alone gone down for it. But yeah, you can't do that sort of thing.
I'm going to Madeira in a few weeks, so I have told my son he might not be able to wear his red Ipswich away kit with O'Shea 26 on the back while we walk around on Cristiano Ronaldo Island.
And this afternoon, it went off even to a larger extent this afternoon, by all accounts. Are we allowed to claim former loanee Troy Parrott as part of our news show segment?
No, I imagine he scored more goals today for Ireland away in Hungary than he scored for Ipswich in training. But yeah, incredible story for him. He's had an interesting career, hasn't he, Joe? Troy Parrott, and yeah, just that the finish, like it was Roy of the Rovers stuff. That third and final crucial goal there, but it wasn't an easy chance at all, but it's just a player just with full of confidence and just so focused and just manages to get his studs on the end of a cross and, well, a knockdown and direct them perfectly into the corner. Just incredible scenes for the Irish and completely written off by Joe, Henry and I in the international podcast. But yeah, I mean, they've still got a lot of work to do to get through to the playoffs, but it'd be absolutely incredible if they can pull it off.
Yeah, 6 points later, and it was a great timed run, wasn't it? I watched I've seen the highlights of it back, and the 2 Irish commentators who were just petrified that it was offside, but it was yards and yards onside. He just timed that run absolutely. It was a great knockdown, wasn't it, as well? Mm-hmm. To just, like I say, as you say, Mikey, to read that knockdown and to get his studs there ahead of the goalkeeper was perfect. And Jack Taylor didn't start today, did he? He came on as a sub, though.
Came on, helped change the game on 80 minutes. Jack, did you see Taylor getting stuck in to Ruben Diaz the other night? That was nice. Just he was
after the goal.
Yeah, he was Ogbene's enforcer because Diaz pretty aggressive to Ogbene as they went away celebrating. And yeah,
well, Taylor, I think Ogbene decided he was going to carry the ball with him, hadn't he? He was running off to the corner flag with the ball tucked away, and it riled up the Portuguese. But as you say, Mikey, then Jack Taylor come hurling in, I was going to say, which is rather appropriate. But Ogbene played, if he didn't play both 90 minutes, he played the vast majority of both matches, didn't he?
I think he came off about 4 minutes left of the first one, then pulled up with about 10 minutes left of the second one, didn't he? So I don't know if he ended up going off with that one. But I guess from an Ipswich perspective, it's now March. March is international break where they will have a playoff game, a playoff semi-final game. And then if they win that, they will then have a second game, which will be the final in that break. It's all concluded in the March international break. So they'll either have, like I say, they'll have one game. And if they win that, then they'll have the second game there. So we'll see whether Casey McAteer is back in the squad by then and Sammy Smodics is back fit, and like Jack Taylor and Darrow O'Shea and Chio Ogbene would be certainties to be in the squad after their sort of appearances this break if they're fit.
Yeah, and are the playoffs ranked at all, Joe? Seeded?
Yeah, there's 4 pots, and then there's sort of like the teams in pot 1 play the teams in pot 4, and the teams in pot 2 play the teams in plot 3. And
like a playoff semi-final.
Yeah, so the ones in plot 1 and 2 will be home. So I think Ireland are in plot. I'm losing the plot here at the moment. Ireland are in pot 3, but I think if North Macedonia finish above Wales in their qualifying group, that will move Ireland up to pot 2, which will be a massive thing because it means they'll be playing their semi-final at the Aviva Stadium as opposed to away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, brilliant. Well, good luck to those guys. As Joe said, they've got a bit of downtime now internationally until March. Other Ipswich Town players who were involved to varying, well, currently involved. There's still games to go, I assume. Sindre Volley Agele scored once and had 2 penalties for Norway's under-21s as they beat European side Israel 3-0 in a European Championship qualifier on Friday. He just seems to have, Mikey, he's just, every time he plays for the under-21s, he does stuff, doesn't he? He scores goals or he assists. He just seems to be a level above the under-21s, but not quite good enough to regularly edge himself into the first team.
He's not quite there yet, but we've all seen the last few weeks. We're going to talk about it, aren't we? How much he started to grow in confidence and look the part in the Championship. And I think once he's a fully fledged upper end Championship player, I think he's got a chance of getting a call up for Norway in March. Although it's one of those, because Norway qualified quite early for the World Cup, didn't they? So
they're
potentially
not
he'll miss
qualified
out
yet, are they? I don't think. I think they play Italy in their next game, and Italy have to if Italy beat them 9-0, then Italy will qualify ahead of them. So they'll be ramping up the goal difference against them, but they beat Italy. But I don't know what sort of squads they're taking at the moment. But if they're only taking 23, 24 man squads, you'd think a player of his caliber might be the one that, when it comes to World Cup time, that is taken as a one for the future. But like I say, they've got fantastic attacking options, haven't they? Erling Haaland, Strand Larsen, Oscar Bob. So there's a few there. There's that Nipan at Man City, who's on loan at Middlesbrough. I think he's in the under-21s with him at the moment. So they've got some really good attacking options. But you'd hope that if they do get there, that he's one that they have a look at. But I guess trying to get to the under-21s tournament is probably more important than just having him as a unused substitute or squad member for games at the moment.
Yeah, what an experience though to potentially head off to the World Cup as a youngster. One person who may not, or remains to be seen, heading off to the World Cup, George Hurst, very much a third choice striker for Scotland at the moment. He did win his 6th cap in the eventual loss to Greece, but only came on as a 88th, 89th minute sub. Question here from Terry. I suppose these are 2 different questions. I'd imagine, Joe. If you're Scotland manager, what order do you rank Adams, Dykes, and Hurst? And if you're Ipswich Town manager, what order would you have these guys in your team?
I think Ipswich fans may be a little one-eyed looking at this, because I think Che Adams is still a really good player. He's a guy with quite a lot of Premier League football under his belt, probably 100, 120, 150 games in the Premier League. Scored 20-odd goals in the Championship season for Birmingham before he got that big move up to the Premier League. And he's currently in Serie A at Torino and starting regularly for them. So I can see why he is seen as the main man there. But yeah, Lyndon Dykes is... I can understand why Lyndon Dykes would come on in the role George Hurst did last night, as in bring him on for the last 5 minutes and just hump balls at him to try and win things. But he seems to be coming on as the first sub, where I'd probably have Hurst as the first sub and Dykes as a second. But I think, like I say, Scotland got incredibly lucky last night because they were awful and they were 3-0 down. And then from that point on, they turned it on, got back to 3-2. The keeper made 2 fantastic saves, one from McTominay and I can't remember who the other one was from. I think Christie, yeah, the Bournemouth player, isn't it? And Scotland really should have got back into that game. But everyone assumed Denmark would beat Belarus because Belarus didn't have a point in the group yet. And then Denmark were 1-0 up and cruising, and then all of a sudden Belarus were 2-1 up, and because that ended in a draw, it now means that Scotland still have a chance at the automatic spot. They're guaranteed a player spot. They still had, if they beat Denmark at, I think it's at Hampden on Tuesday.
It is at Hampden, yeah.
Yeah, so if they beat them at home on Tuesday, they'll be in the World Cup as group winners because Denmark couldn't take care of Belarus. So, yeah.
What an atmosphere that's going to be.
Yeah, this has been a great qualifying campaign. There's been some fantastic atmospheres.
Yeah. So I don't think Nunes didn't play, did he? I think it was an unused sub. I think tail end of last week I read. Is there any other of the youngsters get games for their relative under-21s or younger age groups, Joe?
Not huge amounts. Oliver Wilkinson played for England under-17s. I think they were I think they beat USA 5-2. He then didn't play the next game. It's Ivory Coast, and they play Australia tomorrow, so he'll probably get another game there. Somto Boniface is a late sub for England under-20s as they drew 1-1 with Japan. Ryan Carr made his Scotland under-21 debut as they beat Gibraltar 2-0 last night. Willie Williamson was an unused sub. Josh Pitts came on as a sub for Malta against Germany under-21s. They lost 6-0, but they were sort of 5-0 down when he came on. And I've probably missed someone, but that's all the ones I think of off the top of my head.
Still great experience, though, isn't it, for these kids to go out and just play international football, regardless of the team that they're playing for. They're going out and playing international football. That England under-17, Joe, what's the difference between that team then and the one that's playing in the World Cup currently?
Basically, the one that's in the World Cup is the under-18s, but they qualified last year as the under-17s. So it's still the under-17 World Cup, but it's for, I guess, 2008 born players rather than 2009. So the under-17 calendar has changed. So it's effectively just a year above him. But that the under-17 World Cup is going to be an annual tournament now in Qatar for the next at least 5 years, 48-team tournament. But we haven't qualified for next year's already because we lost in the under-17 in the qualifiers a few weeks back, so to Lithuania and Scotland. So we're not going to be in the World Cup anyway. But I say I know obviously Qatar has its criticism and the sort of money side of it there, but when you look at this tournament, it's unbelievable. Really, it's like a tournament when you're a kid. There's like 8 pitches all side by side. You're
playing at the Grove in Felixstowe, aren't they, Joe?
Yeah, it seems like that. Yeah, I think the facilities are a little better there. The grass isn't quite as dry as it used to be for the summer tournaments down there, where sort of like
do they as they walk onto the pitch? Is it like a whiteboard with all the list of all the teams and who they're playing and what order you're playing, which teams? Yeah.
When you finish your match, you have to go and check to see where your next game is, and all the players eat like 4 hot dogs between games, so they have to go to the next game and struggle to run.
Sumo wrestling in between matches. Yeah,
that's it. Capri Sun or Sunny Delight in between as well. Perfect. I think that's it then internationally. In other news, if people wish to go and vote for Jayden Philogene goal against Norwich City in the 3-1 victory to be the Sky Bet EFL Goal of the Month for October, I believe the voting closes at some point tomorrow. So head over to the EFL website and tick the box next to Jayden's name for that. There were also a couple of goalkeeper interviews that piqued some interest, some Ipswich Town involvement, one more directly than some others. On the Football Federation of Kosovo's YouTube channel, Aro Muric sat down for a good 25-30 minutes with their interviewer and went through all things international and club related. Obviously doing very well at Sassuolo in Serie A, but he suggested that he'd like to find a club to settle down with now for the foreseeable future. Mikey, it's unlikely that club is going to be Ipswich Town. I know Phil, the TWTD's reported that Sassuolo have been keen to maybe get that deal done sooner rather than later, in January rather than wait until the summer, and maybe a few more clubs, if he carries on playing as well as he is for Sassuolo, it may be that a few more clubs will come into the mix. An ideal situation is we end up selling him for the agreed fee with Sassuolo, but is it something that we look to do in January, Mikey, or do we actually see this one out and the ball's in our court when it comes to the summer?
Yeah, I guess it'd have to be Sassuolo, wouldn't it? If it's going to be in January, if they come in with the offer, then I don't really see what's stopping us from getting the deal done, getting some money in this season. And yeah, it's just it couldn't have worked out better. A signing that couldn't have worked out worse at the moment. Things couldn't have gone better this season for him at Sassuolo and with Kosovo. He's playing really well. He's obviously closer to Switzerland, so it's easier to get home after matches. And yeah, he said in that interview that he wants to find a home. And yeah, why not Sassuolo? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, good luck to him. You do just wonder, Joe, whether if he does continue playing well in his own interests, whether if he's enjoying it at Sassuolo, then he'll stay at Sassuolo. But it could be that he thinks, well, actually, I might be able to get a club slightly higher up the food chain if I do still play well for a team that ends up in the top half of Serie A.
I guess it's just how it works with the option on the transfer, that if there is an agreed option, then they will be able to get him. Whether it might be that they have to wait till the end of the season before the option becomes valid, so they can get him then. But I guess sort of a bird in the hand, isn't it? In January, if they're happy with him, I think the deal seems to be agreed at 10 million euros, which is 8.8 million quid, and we paid 10 for him, so we'd be taking a small loss on him. But we've probably had a loan fee this year, so it ends up probably about as level as you can be. He'll be FFP wise, won't go down as a loss because he'd have amortised slightly below that. So I'd imagine if they want him, they'll be able to find a way of getting him.
Yeah, as you say, things are looking a little bit rosier than they probably were in January, February time from our perspective, when he was bombed out of the team and not playing and didn't really feature much in pre-season apart from a Colchester United half-time appearance, I think it was. But there was another interview, Joe, that you'd mentioned in Telegram that you'd happened across recently, slightly more historic news, but Lee Camp had done an interview with the Second Tier pod guys.
Yeah, no, it's on Second Tier podcast released today. Somebody mentioned it in the comments, but it's quite an interesting interview because he's obviously Lee Camp's a guy who played hundreds of games in the Championship. I think he's like the all-time record appearance maker in the Championship, or for most starts. I think Albert Adom's got more appearances, he talks at the start of his career being at Derby with Lee Grant was the other goalkeeper there as well, who's obviously coached here, and Malcolm Webster came in as George Burley's goalkeeper coach, and Malcolm Webster was the one that sort of pushed him to start there and told George Burley that's what he wanted, and said to Burley that he's never gone against him. But he mentions that he sort of has a good spell there, and he ends up at QPR and gets stuck there because they have new owners come in. He's on big wages, seen as a merchant. He goes to Forest, and then a similar thing happens there. I think there's another takeover there, and he's on the way out. And he's able to leave in January 2013 on a free transfer. And he said he had an offer from Norwich of a 6-month deal till the end of the season, who were currently in the Premier League at the time. And he met Mick McCarthy at St George's Park, where he was offered a 4.5-year contract at Ipswich. But he said because he got himself into sort of bad situations at QPR and Forest on long-term deals, he felt he was just like settling for it. So he should sort of try and strive and push himself to take the Premier League contract. So he took the short contract there rather than 4.5 years at Ipswich. And in that January window, we subsequently signed Stephen Henderson to see us through to the end of the season. So I guess that was instead of him. And then at the end of the season, we signed Dean Gherkin on a long-term contract from Bristol City on a free transfer. So it's more, I guess, a little bit of a sliding doors moment. He then ended up being the Bournemouth keeper in the season where they beat us to second place effectively in 2014-15, and then went to Rotherham and had a good year there where they came down, and when Neil Warnock went in there, and then he sort of came in and turned them around, and they beat us down here when Leon Best got the goal against us 1-0. Then he went to Cardiff with Neil Warnock. So he sort of continued to have a really good career from there. But yeah, I guess without that, we probably wouldn't have seen Bartosz Białkowski because he came in sort of the year after that. So yeah, just an interesting point from that one. And the whole interview is quite interesting, really.
It's great. The number of these deals that you just don't hear about, or don't hear about for 10 years down the line, things that may or may not have just happened if the coin had fallen on a heads rather than a tails. It's quite a lot of this that goes on. There's another one actually that Mick McCarthy's, it seems to be on my TikTok a lot. My algorithms are obviously working very well, but he's on the Peter Crouch podcast, isn't he, at the moment? They're clipping up bits. Him and Tony Pulis have done some sort of amalgamation or cross of the streams with the Peter Crouch podcast. And there's a story there where he almost signed Steve Sidwell from Wolves, and Steve Sidwell's in the studio with Peter Crouch, and I think he's basically on the treatment table having his medical, and Steve Sidwell's agent hears that Fulham have got some interest in him, so Steve Sidwell decides that he'd rather go and play for Fulham, nearer to family, etc., etc. I don't think the money was any better rather than Wolves, and Mick McCarthy basically tells him to F off out of his club. So there you go, little story for that. In terms of bits and pieces coming up, actually, no, get some more questions in. If I've seen some coming in, I've noted them down. But if you've got any questions for the guys, we will cover them in the second half of the show. We had some also from the Telegram faithful earlier as well. In terms of shows this week, obviously we're now heading back to normal-ish, back to Wrexham at the weekend. So we're getting back into the swing of your normal Blue Monday routine, which would be tomorrow for top tier subscribers. There is a Beyond the Scoreline pod where the guys will also be doing a review of October. There'll be pre-match back. Rich and Seb will be back on Thursday night for the preview or the pre-match. Top Tier will have their weekend preview on Friday, and then back on the Flagship Sunday evening to talk about Wrexham, which will be next Saturday. And then we'll be back into the swing of our regular shows and regular outputs, because there isn't another international break for a little while, thankfully. Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk for all the info and your links to Telegram and Top Tier, etc., etc. We'll just have a very quick break here, and then we'll go through our October ratings, Player of the Month, etc.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Super stuff. Yeah, thank you very much to Atwells for their continued support. In terms of October player ratings, Joe, do you want to just give everyone a quick summary of the explanation of the ratings, etc.? These were for the 4 games, if people cast their minds back, the 4 games of October, which were Norwich 3-1 victory, Middlesbrough 2-1 loss, that dreadful night against Charlton 3-0, and then the late win against West Brom at home.
Yeah, so it's quite a tough month, because you've got obviously the highs of the derby, and then you've got 2 sort of, one okay performance, one absolute stinker, and then one sort of ground out victory. So there isn't much glory. There isn't much glory this month. It's in that side after the first game, and then it's just a case of the Blue Monday guys. We all sort of put a rating down on sort of strict parameters between sort of 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and the whole point of it is to try and expand the range. So rather than sort of just your sort of 6s and 7s, you sort of end up with 2s and 3s and 8s and maybe a 9 if you're lucky. So it's just going on that side and sort of averaging them out, sort of awarding a man of the match and seeing who scores well for this and over the course of the season.
And yeah, so just to reiterate, they are quite harsh scores, aren't they? They are the infamous L'Équipe, or we try and sort of mirror the L'Équipe ratings, where you have to play very, very, very well to get an 8, basically. So don't be spooked if there's not a lot of people towards the far end of the spectrum, shall we say. What Rich has done for us is he's divvied up the players into their positions on the pitch, as we've done the last couple of months, into defence, stroke goalkeeper, then the central midfield and the 10s, and then our attackers. So I'll get the graphics up here for the defenders and the goalkeeper. Now, it's right, Joe, isn't it, that the dots are season to date, year to date, and the line and the block. So apologies for those who are listening after the event, but so yeah, the dots are their year to date performances, and the line and the square are their October bar, if you like.
Yeah, so as you can see from this, Alex Palmer's injury came at a bad time for him, because he was good, and you'll find out as we go through this, he was actually the player of the month this month, Alex Palmer. So well done to you. You were player of the month and then got injured midway through in the 3rd game, and now might not get your place back in the team. So it's a sort of curse from that side, but it's more just looking to see how they compared. Like Christian Walton's the first time we've seen him this season, and he's had 2 okay games. Darragh O'Shea was below the quality shown in the rest of the season. Leif Davis was below it. Darnell Furlong was below it. Cedric Keepray was below it. As you'd expect, it's been quite a tough month, so the players hadn't done too well. But obviously Alex Palmer's done well, and the sort of 2 standout defenders have been Leif Davis and Cedric Keepray. Jacob Greaves didn't play enough this month to feature.
Yeah, as Joe says there, Mikey, it's interesting, and it probably bears out that the dots being year to date or season to date performances, apart from Alex Palmer and Christian Walton, who hadn't got a dot, as it were, the performances have unfortunately just slightly decreased in the month of October.
Yeah, it's sort of 1 month on, or 1 month off, 1 month on at the moment, isn't it? We had a poor August, fairly uplifting September, then a pretty poor October, and hopefully we're on course to have a good November. We've definitely started well, but yeah, 1 or 2 players on there. You see, Darrow O'Shea, I'd kind of forgotten how much his level had dropped. So he had a couple of bad games, didn't he? Those two defeats, he was one of our worst players. And yeah, Leif Davis not quite up to the same standards that he set earlier on in the season, but has since bounced back. And I think O'Shea probably has as well. I think Furlong's rating is maybe because he had such a good debut that his average was maybe a bit further ahead than what it was, and he's sort of returned to the mean. But then since then, he's had an assist against QPR and had a couple of decent performances.
Yeah, we'll see when we come to November, but Furlong is very much so. He started really well, then just didn't really put in another good performance, but seems to have clicked now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the point you're making there, Mikey, is that we've had 3 decent, sometimes more than decent performances in November already, haven't we? With the QPR, Watford and Swansea City, they're all going to be performances which will push all of these players' ratings in the right direction, as it were. In terms of the midfield, then, look at the midfield range up here. Similarly, again, dots being your season to date. And again, across the board, really, unfortunately, the October, and certainly for one of them in particular, Joe, things aren't looking particularly rosy for the Swede in the midfield.
No, I think this probably tells people what they can have seen with their own eyes, really, that Azul Matasi was basically found a level that he's just hitting that level week after week and been really, really consistent with it. Jens Kajustad started the season pretty well and probably was one of our stronger players his first few appearances, but just fell off a cliff this month. I thought he was awful against Middlesbrough, really, really poor against Middlesbrough, not much better. And Charlton at home, those 2 games were just really, really poor performances from him. And hopefully, I know he then was dropped out of the team for the WBA game that Jack Taylor was in. Jack Taylor didn't play enough games this month to feature in this, but he's pushing up there. But yeah, everyone else is just dropping down, and Chuba Akpom has sort of been consistently at the bottom of the ratings, sort of down there with Casey McDeer, and nothing this month has done anything to sort of push him the right direction. If anything, he's been slightly worse this month than he'd been previously. So yeah, that's somebody that needs a big amount of improvement. Yeah,
I think, Mikey, as you said about the defenders, it's sort of, you can see it with your own eyes, can't you? And unfortunately for us, those Kajustad performances, especially in October, it was quite a significant downturn from the performances we'd seen from him season to date so far.
Yeah, because at the start he was looking like a cheat code, wasn't he? But the goals and assists weren't coming, and then the level dropped off. And when we were bad, he was bad. But what is noticeable on there is there's a player that isn't even on there who is now probably going to be in with a shout of being our November Player of the Month, and that's Jack Taylor. Just wasn't anywhere near it. And when he signed his new contract, when was the new contract start of September? Mid-September?
Yeah, he was because he was already sort of out of the team at this point, wasn't he?
And then he signs a new contract, and I think most of us are suggesting that that's just looking after the asset, potentially with a view to a sale, but he's found his way into the team, and that was something else that was spoken about in the podcast, not Jack Taylor specifically, but we said at some point we're going to stumble into something and it's going to make a difference. I think Taylor came off the bench and made a positive contribution away at Middlesbrough in the short cameo that he had. Started to get more appearances and now has stepped up. But yeah, it's very telling that in October, not even on this rating list, but yeah, that guy at the top is probably the biggest. Well, he is the biggest hit, and it looks like he's going to carry on in those greens for the rest of the season. What is that one? A bit of a mustard. I think he's going to move even further towards green as the season goes on. You've just got to hope that Chuba Akpom can start pulling himself towards the middle, because he's been pretty underwhelming so far.
Yeah, sadly so. Well, let's move up a little bit further up the pitch then. Let's get our attacking team here. again, dots being season to date. There are some. Well, one particular has outperformed his season to date in Jack Clark. Apart from that, a little bit of a downturn from George Hurst, but an appearance really from Ivan Azon for the first real time. He's got some decent time under his belt, and another one who may well find that hopefully his November performances will push him up even further, Mikey.
Yeah, definitely. Hurst, really difficult month for him, October, but yeah, Athon now he's got that goal that potentially gets the nod against Wrexham. I think Bristol City is the only start that he's had so far, but he looked like he was getting closer and closer to a goal, but then some people suggesting he was never going to score. And then he quickly put that to bed with an important goal for him. Clark and Philogene, it's an interesting one. It's quite frustrating in a way, isn't it? That our two best attacking players both play in the same position, so it's difficult to get them on the pitch at the same time. But then you look at Agelli, and he's making strides in a position that was a worry this time a month ago. So yeah, reasons for positivity now, because it's a bit strange. We're doing this so far into November, aren't we? And we
well, exactly.
To
To Paul's point here, saying we all seem very downbeat. Well, we are talking about two pretty poor performances. Well, not poor performances. One very, very poor performance in Charlton, and one iffy performance up at Middlesbrough. And to the point about George Hurst here, Joe, is that we're saying, he had a bit of a wretched time in October. Well, he scored 2 goals in the first game of November, which we're not allowed to talk about until we get into December.
Yeah, and also that he put in a really good performance away at Swansea as well. So these ratings are all going to jump up from there. I think Jack Clark's probably a little harshly done by because he's made a number of good cameos, but he's probably coming on for sort of 15, 20 minutes at the end of the game. Not enough time to really get a rating. But I'd say you can see he was the one that outperformed his season to date rating. But I think it's difficult because both Clark and Philogene at the start of the season were both so poor in those first up until that Sheffield United game where Jaden Philogene exploded. That sort of right-hand side, left-hand side, we were just getting absolutely nothing out of them, but they're sort of slowly working their way up here. And I think come the November one, if the month carries on as it has done so far, we're going to be a lot more positive. It's shown a lot more. But like I say, the one thing shown again there is Casey McAteer, really poor in there. And he's got a lot to do. Like when I was sort of looking at the season to date, sort of from top to bottom to the end of October, and our top 4 players are actually Cedric Kipé, Azor Matasiwa, Marcelino Nunes, and Jack Taylor was actually the 4th best player, sort of combined in his first 2 or 3 games of the season where he's in the team, and then put with the WBA game on top of that. So he's actually had a decent season in that regard. And then at the bottom of it, it's Chuba Akpom and Casey McAteer, and not to sort of push sort of too far on those, but they are players that we need to see big improvement out of. And I think Chuba Akpom started to. I thought he looked quite sharp in the Watford game at home and was very unlucky not to score when he hit the bar, didn't he? And had another couple of shots. He had a good snapshot at sort of just after the break there, which the keeper did well to save. But both him and Sam Smodics in that 10 role, I think we'll probably come onto the 10 role later at some point. But those guys, I know people don't like expected goals, but I think both of them have got 3 expected goals this season, and neither of them have scored. So they've probably got as many expected goals from that position as we've got from the left wing position. But the left wing position have got 12 goals between them, and the 10 position's got 0 because Jaden Philogene sort of can't miss from anywhere within 25 yards of the goal, and Jack Clark's been fantastic as well.
So in terms of the fabled, esteemed October Blue Monday Player of the Month, then Joe, you did sneak preview it at the beginning, but who did it end up being?
Yeah, it was Alex Palmer. I think sort of difficult to argue. I don't think anyone for that.
By quite a bit as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had a good game against. He had a good game against Norwich where he sort of kept us in there with a couple of big saves when he needed to. A fantastic game against Middlesbrough where he was a clear man of the match by a big chunk. And then in the Charlton game was playing well until he got injured. So, but it's sort of tough one for him now because as we spoke about in the Flagship last week, does he come back into the team? I assume he's going to be back fit come the Wrexham game next Saturday, or does Christian Walton keep his place? But yeah, he was sort of far and away the best, sort of highest rated player last month
So from memory, the first 3 months of the season, we had Ashley Young was August, wasn't he? And Alex Palmer's been October. Who was September's?
Jaden Philogene was September.
Oh, of course it was.
So we're in there, yeah.
Okay.
So but hopefully someone can show a bit of consistency and win a couple of these soon and sort of keep moving on. I'd rather be Jaden Philogene than Alex Palmer, but
yeah, exactly. I say, luckily for us, we've got a few more people that could further up the pitch as well that may make some inroads into our Player of the Month for November. Well, super stuff. Thank you very much for that, guys. I shall move on to questions now. We've had a fair few in here. We had some from the Telegram, so I'll head on to the Telegram ones first. Jason asked in the Telegram group, where will Ipswich be in the league table on the first day of the new year? Now, given there are a lot of matches. I did actually write down how many matches there were. Was it 12 in 44 days or something along those lines, I think?
42,
yeah. So there are a lot of matches coming up, and a lot of points to play for, and hopefully, without wishing to steal your answers, guys, our fabled strength in depth will come to the fore now and see us edge up the table and claw a few points back. Mikey, do you want to give us an idea of whereabouts in the league will be and your reasonings behind it?
Yeah, so I think we'll be about fifth because I can see us continue with this 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing. I think that's just the makeup of this team. Such a new team, so many new players, and we're slightly flawed in some areas and really strong in others. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be quite where we want to be come January the 1st. But I think we're going to be a little bit closer than we are now on the basis of recent performances. That's the way I see it at the moment. But win away at Wrexham and then win at home to Wrexham and then things already look different. We're probably going to be we would be in the top 6 almost certainly if we do that. So yeah, I'm being a little bit conservative with this one, but I think fifth.
Joe, you think the Ipswich Town juggernaut's going to slowly start clicking into gear?
Yes, yeah, I think it will, but not probably still with some of what Mikey says, where you sort of probably 2 steps forward, 1 steps back. So I'll be conservative and say second during this period. But I think it's more because when you look at the teams above us, you've got Middlesbrough who are second, who have just lost their manager this week, and that will likely bring some teething problems as they try and move away from that. And then sort of 3rd to 6th is what, Preston, Millwall. I can't even remember who else is in there, but it's all teams that Stoke, all teams that I don't expect to. I think we've got an extra game over this period as well. We've got the Blackburn away game, so we have got one more than everyone. But I'd imagine they're teams that have already shown that levels of inconsistency as well. So I just don't see that there's anyone in the table that's going to win sort of 8 of the next 11 games. We might do. We've got the potential to, but I just don't see that they will. And I think we'll probably win more games than they will and just accumulate a few more points than them, even if we do chuck in the odd stinker for performance there. Like I said, we've got 20 from the last 10, haven't we? So I think if we did 20 from the next 10, which I think takes us to sort of Boxing Day, I'd imagine that would probably claw in all but Middlesbrough unless they really do fall off a cliff with a new manager.
So I need to press you, I'm afraid, Joe, for a position in the league table where we will be.
I said second.
Oh, okay. So I thought you said behind Middlesbrough. Apologies.
No. I mean, they're the only team that I could see because they're like 6 ahead of us, aren't they, at the moment? So I think if we get 20 from the next 10, you might not claw them in with that. Where I think 20 from the next 10, you probably claw in Stoke, Millwall, Preston. I don't think they're going to get 18 points for 10 games because they've probably had a sort of hot start already. And I think 20 from 10 is probably hopefully a minimum of what we get.
And as I said, you've got to think that if we've got 3 games in the next 7 days, albeit one of those is on the Friday night, so it brings in that duration a little bit. There are 7 games in December, and a lot of teams are going to be having 6 or 7 games in December, and that's when you've got to hope that by virtue of us bringing people in and out of the squad who are relatively similarly of an ability-wise level, then you wouldn't see much of a downturn in our performances. Hopefully,
no, actually, and one of the things about
December is tough on paper, though, isn't it?
Got Coventry twice, don't we? Yeah, so
Coventry twice, Leicester away, Stoke at home, Millwall away.
But whilst we got 12 games in 42 days. There's 11 championship game weeks in that period. We've only got the one extra game, Blackburn. So there's 11. Every team's going to have 11 games in 42 days, which is a lot of football. And like I say, you see Bristol City there; they can barely fill their bench as it is at the moment. They're one of the teams above us. There's just no way they're going to be able to keep up with the sort of style of football their manager plays, that real sort of high intensity stuff this season. So you sort of see them slide, and you look at the. Actually, I tell a lie. When I said earlier, I don't see another team who could potentially sort of win 8 out of 11. I think Birmingham are really starting to sort of purr a bit. I think when you look at the stats, us, Coventry and Birmingham are just a sort of level above everyone else in the league. And I think unless teams keep really overperforming what they should be doing, it's going to be us three that sort of start to pull away. So they're the ones probably to worry about. But
yeah,
they're the only team below us in the table that I could see getting above us.
Yeah, Birmingham are really interesting, aren't they? In that they had obviously quite a decent start and then fell away quite considerably. But now, as you say, Joe, really clicked into gear, and their underlying stats a bit similar to what was when we came up to the Championship the first time. Their underlying figures really do look like they're turning into the real deal. Yeah, absolutely. Question from Terry, who's referring back to our ratings. Where would the manager be on the chart? Somewhere near the mustard part, do you think, Mikey, at the moment for this season?
Yeah, East Anglia's blue and white, never yellow and green. But yeah, McKenna probably is mustard. It's a difficult. It's been a difficult period for Kieran McKenna, but I don't think he's got an incredible amount wrong. I think there's been some underperformances, a little bit of bad luck, and then some good performances from the opposition as well. But winning the derby, bouncing back from that really slow start, I think, puts him in between a 6 and a 7, and I think that's probably how he sees it too. If we're going off L'Keep, you can't be putting.
Maybe it's a 5 and a 6, sort of, rather than 6 and 7.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
we put in one stinker, haven't we, this year, which was that Charlton game. That's the only real stinker for performance we've put in. We've been we probably deserved a little bit more than we've got. I'd say, other than I think every win we've had, we've deserved the win. We've done enough to win those games.
Birmingham, we were a bit jammy at the start.
Yeah, and for all the draws, I'd say sort of Birmingham, we were probably a little bit jammy. Bristol City, we're a little bit jammy, but the others were games that we just any other day we win those games, aren't they? The Watford game, if you play that 10 more times, you win that game. So I think we've probably deserved every point we've got this season, and we probably could have had a little bit more from there. But it's just where we go from here now. And I say we put in that one stinker for performance, and since then we sort of tightened up. He's made the sort of big call, putting Jack Taylor into the team, and it seems to be making a difference in there and has given us a nicer balance. So I think we're just sort of ready to push on from here. Just probably need Sam Smodics and Chuba Akpom to sort of have one go in somehow for them. I know Smodics is probably going to miss a little bit longer, isn't he? But you need Chuba Akpom to start scoring goals, because we know he's capable of doing it, and he's getting the chances now. He just needs to take one, and I think they'll start flowing when he does.
Mischievous, unlike Mullet to be mischievous. We've got a mischievous question here from Mullet, and it's possibly a question that gets asked in a few pubs around the town of Ipswich, and it won't make much of a difference because Celtic are sniffing around a guy from Columbus Crew, are they? Did I read today? But he's asked, if Kieran goes to another club after recent interests, who do you pick as his replacement? Mikey, have you got a name on the top of your head that you'd like to give us, should the worst happen?
I don't have one.
No. Michael Carrick, that sort of caliber level.
I think you'd probably want somebody who's done a bit more than that, wouldn't you?
It wouldn't be John Dale Thomason.
Well, there you go. Yeah, in terms of timing, they probably couldn't have timed that searching for their manager any worse when there are clubs a little
Sorry,
bit further.
Craig, I've completely drawn a blank there. It shows how much I've even considered it.
Well, exactly. Well, hopefully we won't have to. But hopefully Mark Ashton has got a few more names on his list than you have on yours. But hopefully it won't need to come to that. As I say,
Freddie Mowbray until the end of the season, and then see where we are.
It's funny because I think one we'd always liked was John Mousinho, and he'd done a really good job at Portsmouth, but that seems to have stopped recently, doesn't it? And they're really struggling there. So maybe, and there's even talk that he's in trouble there. So you sort of wonder where that goes. But I think you'd be looking at someone probably with a bit of Premier League experience now. We're we're of that level where we should be able to attract someone like that. Like Neil's put Liam Rossini in the thing. He's done it. He's someone we liked when he was at Hull, and I think he's doing a good job at Strasbourg, isn't he? I think they got them into the Champions League, so it might be a tough one to bring back from the Blue Group, as Chelsea's owners like to Blue Co Group, as they're sort of part of Chelsea's group, aren't they? But yeah, I think that's probably as good a shout as anyone, isn't it?
Shabby said Corberán here, but have Middlesbrough appointed anyone yet? Because I saw that some of their fans were saying that suggesting that they should go for Corberán themselves.
Apparently they're close to Raphael Vicky, who the sort of former Swiss international, sort of from the 90s, early 2000s. I think he managed out in Chicago. I think most recently he was Chicago Fire manager, but he's managed young boys and Basel in the Swiss league. I think he won a title with young boys, but then was sacked the following season. So I couldn't tell you a huge amount more about him than that.
A question from Andy in the Telegram group is, who would you consider to be Town's most cotton wool player? One that we can't afford to lose for any kind of period. Joe, who's your cotton wool player?
Well, with the squad makeup as it is, I'd say Azor Matasiwa.
Yeah.
Maybe closely followed by Leif Davis.
No obvious replacements.
No, because I think Leif Davis, as much as you'd miss him because he's such an integral part of the way we play, you could, like Ben Johnson's a good player there, Harry Clark can play that side. You've got options. Yeah, you would change things how you play, but I think with Matasiwa, you just don't have anyone that can do what he does, and that sort of holding midfield role. And sort of, we've seen a few comments in the chat here today, but it's interesting. Kieran McKenna spoke about how I think the plan was for him to come in with Sam Morsy here as well, and then those two sort of dovetail for a season, and then Matasiwa would take over from that point. But it's just not happened. That just didn't happen, and we haven't really got anyone else who can play that role. No,
but then to Mikey's point, when we were going through the ratings, his performances aren't getting any worse either, are they, Mikey Matasiwa's? They are of a steady performance, and if not, just improving visibly match on match, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, enormous shoes to fill, Sam Morsey's, and I was pretty down on us losing him, even though Matasiwa was coming in. I thought it was a big mistake on and off the pitch. Now it's probably still a mistake in terms of leadership, but we're not missing Sam Morsey, the footballer, too much because Matasiwa's been so good. And if he can add the occasional goal to his game as well, then he'll be moving into those 8s and 9s, I think. And definitely an early shout for player of the season. Definitely our most cotton wool player. And it is a worry that he does pick up bookings, doesn't he?
He's up to 7 now, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, so let's hope
he does seem to be a bit of a magnet for them as well, doesn't he? There are similar things happening on the pitch for other players on our side and on the opposition side, but Matasiwa seems to be the one that gets the yellow card for them.
Let's hope he's as good at walking that tightrope as Mr. Morsey was.
Yeah. There's another name that Terry's just put in the chat there, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think he's sort of punted himself around for a job back in England at the moment, and I think when you actually look at what he did at Man United, he actually did a good job there until they put Cristiano Ronaldo in there when he obviously didn't really want him in there. So he sort of overperformed, turned them round to a decent extent, overperformed there until the sort of transfers took over him. Done a good job out in Besiktas, so I think he'd be a decent sign, a decent manager as well. But we won't need to be changing anyway.
No, exactly. As we've spoken about him, a question from Joel and a question from Glenn, both along similar lines. Where do you sit with re-signing Morsey? Would you bring Morsey back? He seems to be back in the country. His wife's up in, well, certainly his wife's in Wolverhampton. If the videos are anything to go by, so I assume he's back here as well. I don't know anything about tax. I don't know about my tax, let alone Sam Morsey's tax. So I couldn't say whether he's forfeiting an awful lot of money by being back, but he seems to have found a base back up there in the Midlands. But is it something that we would revisit? Should we revisit? And could we revisit it, Mikey?
I don't think so.
That ship has sailed.
I think that ship has sailed. We could use his leadership, but I think once you've gone, you probably shouldn't come back. I know John Walk did, but slightly different circumstances for Mr. Morsey. But if Matt Seaver is out suspended for a few games between now and the end of the season, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I can't see the club bringing him back because I think it was a little bit acrimonious in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, just reading between the lines and bits and pieces. Yeah, you think that unfortunately that was the case. A couple of questions here. One from Norman in regards to, we've got a few players on loan with options to buy. I think a lot of them are actually not options, are they, Joe? Some of them are contractual that we would have to buy them. But if we have got any that you are aware are optional, are there any which you think we should exercise? Are any of these actually? Let's throw the question a little bit wider. Even those that we are contractually obliged to buy, should we get promoted, are any of them showing that they are Premier League quality?
Well, I think someone asked me this in the week, and I had a look to clarify which ones are obligations, which ones are options, and it seems as though Cedric Kipre, 4.5 million euros, is an obligation if we get promoted. Jens Kajuste is an obligation, but that's about 6 million euros or 5.8, so it's not a massive fee. And then Chuba Akpom at, I think, again, about 6 million quid. So those three are obligations, and Ivan Azon is potentially an option there. I'm not 100% sure on that one. It sort of was reported different ways from when he was first going to sign to when he did actually sign, but it seems like the first three are. And ultimately, Jens Kajuste, we've seen what he can do in the Premier League. Yeah, he's not been playing well at the moment, but if you can pick him up for 6 million quid, it's chump change, really. You're in the Premier League. Cedric Kipre, he has played well for us, and again, 4.5 million quid. If that's your backup centre back, well, it's not a lot of money, is it? And I think he could cope with that level if he's just dropping in for a few games here and there. And then the other one, Chuba Akpom, again, similar to Kajuste, but we've seen what Kajuste can do in the Premiership. Chuba Akpom hasn't really shown a huge amount yet, so he's probably one that you bring in, and ultimately, if you do have to buy these players, they're small fees. You can probably loan them out, pick up big chunks of it. If they're not deemed ready for the full squad, so it's just one of those. And Azon, if he carries on and keeps improving, I think we will try and do a permanent deal there because he's one we chased for a long time. But it's, like I say, we know you can't buy Premier League players when you're in the Championship. It just isn't possible. And if this is the only way we could get deals done in the parameters of being a parachute club and not want to take on big contracts and being able to, if we don't go up, give them straight back at the end of the year, then this is what we had to do. But we will, if we go up, we'll have to recruit big again.
Yeah, but to your point, you would be recruiting first team starters and these guys who are coming in for, as you say, ridiculous though it may sound, relatively small fees, 5, 6, 7 million pounds. They're going to be decent backups and a cheap, decent backup for Premier League standards, aren't they, Mikey? But they'll just become squad players, and you would hope that. But you're just raising your floor gradually by having these better players come in as your reserves.
Yeah, and you look. Like, I'm not going to name them, but some of the squad players that we had as backups last season weren't up to the potential quality of the players that we've mentioned there. I think Athon he'd be an upgrade on Al Hamadi as like that third choice centre forward. Kajuste, even though I have my reservations about him as a player, I think he does offer something different. And as like a third or fourth choice central midfielder, I think he's a player that can definitely make an impact on games. And Akpom, yeah, if it doesn't happen between now and the end of the season, and we manage to go up anyway, I think he's one that maybe would look to try and find a way to get out of it or move some pieces around to get him elsewhere. But yeah, it looks, even though two of them aren't, well, none of them are exactly ripping it up. It doesn't look like bad business.
No. The fees we'd be able to get for them, you would think would be higher than the fees that we're buying them for in any case. Should you need to get rid of Chuba Akpom, you might be able to sell him for 8 million, having just bought him for 4 or 5, mightn't you?
Quite possibly.
Right, we're approaching the hour, so I'm going to ask for one-word answers for this one. Just a quick one here from Neil. You say about Azon being potentially a third-choice striker in the Premier League. who would need to come in. He's asking about number 9s, and if we need another number 9, and do we go after one in January? It's going to be bloody difficult to do on a permanent basis, because to Joe's point, we'd like to get as Premier League ready players as we possibly can. But do you think it's something that we look to visit in January, is potentially getting a 9 in, whether it's on loan or permanent? And if you can think of a name, if you want to fire one out at us, Joe, you got anybody in mind that could do us a job?
August Prisk, 21-year-old Danish striker.
Who currently plays for?
I looked him up the other day. Djurgården.
Sounds a bit too much like Priskin for my liking.
I think it's Djurgården.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Well,
The team of Tonton Zola Makoku.
Well, that's Champ Man. What 0102 is that? Mikey, you've got any names? You couldn't give us a name for a manager. Do you want to try and find
No, I
some
couldn't.
name for
No.
a striker.
I
But
think
is it going to be difficult?
when you go and look for a bargain
to do in January?
it is difficult, and yeah, it's unlikely that we're going to know the names of the players that we're looking at. But I know a lot of people in East Anglia head to Braintree for their January shopping, so maybe you could pick up J. Emmanuel Thomas as he enters the final part of his career.
Yeah, he scored a hell of a goal at the weekend on his debut as well, didn't he? Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you very much, gents. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for your comments and your questions, helping us along with regards to this evening. As I say, as of tomorrow, we're back into the swing of things. So anybody who's on Top Tier will be able to catch that show on Monday. Rich and Seb are back on Thursday for the pre-match, and then again, yeah, we're back into the swing of things for Wrexham. Thank you very much, Mikey. Thank you very much, Joe. I've been Craig. This has been Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. We'll see you next time.